Hello all, I'm Twinkle Dave, currently working as a research associate in Environment and Waste Management Division at the Energy and Resources Institute, New Delhi, India. And I have been working with the organization for more than 3 years now and work specifically on areas like municipal solid waste, plastic waste, marine and deep sea ecologies related issues and restorations. And currently, I've started working on circular economy as well. So I'm here today and really very delighted to be part of this training program on capacity building and third-party audits as part of the National Clean Air Program being conducted by NERI and supported by CPCB, IIT, World Bank, and iForest. So before moving forward with my presentation topic, I would like to stress on the fact that air pollution is increasingly becoming one of the major concern, predominantly because of its impact on the human health, agriculture, wealth being of the human, uh, flora and faunal populations. So, in the past, WHO also revealed that 4.2 million deaths occur each year due to outdoor air pollution. And in 2019, about 99% of the world population was living in places which WHO air quality guidelines levels were not even being met. So, this ambient outdoor air pollution in both these cities and the rural areas, it estimated to cause 4.2 million premature deaths worldwide in 2016. And people who were earlier living in the low and middle income countries, they also experienced the burden of the outdoor air pollution, and most of this burden was faced and is being faced till now in the South Asian regions and also in the Western Pacific regions. So what happens is most of the sources of these outdoor air pollution are well beyond the control of individuals and demands efforts and action by the local, national, regional, and regional policy makers and leaders who are working in the similar sectors and domain like agriculture, healthcare, waste, transport, urban planning, etc. So, focusing particularly on the transport sector, there is a need to shift to cleaner modes of transport, cleaner modes of power generation as well, and cleaner heavy duty vehicles to come up on road that are using the cleaner mode of fuels. Also, there is a need to come up with the proper walking and cycling networks in the city that is going to bring the change in the future. So coming back to my presentation topic, which is on the third party audits using mechanical road sweeping machines in India. I would like to highlight that because I was involved in the project, this project undertook the independent audits of these machines to basically oversee the MRS sweeping operations in place. And during this study, we identified certain lacunas which need to be addressed to make operations much more efficient, and physical audits of the MRS was being carried out on ground by the TERI auditors for four urban local bodies in Delhi. So these audits were undertaken, so data was collected on time spent by the machines on each of the activities that happened during the shift hours. We used to receive the actual amount of sweeping undertaken in kilometers during a certain 8 to 10 hours of shift timings. So this kind of a study was one of its kind of audit being conducted in India by TERI in 2018, and it basically helped the urban local bodies in efficiently managing and observing closely the activities these MRS spent during the day. And this included vehicle reaching the depot during the morning, then moving from the depot straight to the routes on which it has to sweep the road. And once the sweeping was complete, moving forward to dump the dust collected. So this kind of audits helped ULBs to come up with good practices in their municipal jurisdiction, work over the issues, and ease the monitoring, review, and verification that will help them in continual improvement and the maintenance of this vehicle. So moving forward, So the contents of the presentation have been highlighted in this slide, wherein I would like to throw the light on that we will be talking about in general about what exactly mechanized road sweeping machines are and how they are particularly designed and what are the things kept in mind, and what are the things that urban local bodies should keep in mind while they deploy these machines on ground, and how these MRS machines are related to air pollution aspect, and what are the existing guidelines and regulations in place for the MRS machines, and the need for coming up with such kind of independent third party audits by the municipalities, and case studies from Delhi municipalities as well. So the main objective of preparing this presentation was basically to sensitize all of my participants who are attending this presentation, to make them aware on what exactly is a mechanized road sweeping machine and how does it operate, and what are the certain parameters being kept in mind, and how does it contributes in real sense in reducing the air pollution from our environment. So what exactly is mechanized road sweeping machine? So as you know that you must have observed while traveling, you must have seen huge giant trucks moving on the road really very slowly, and there is a huge broom kind of thing below these machines that is sweeping the road. So these are nothing but the MRS machine, mechanized road sweeping machine only. And all these MRS machines, they are truck mounted and have vacuum suction engines, also known as auxiliary engines. Machines also have side and central brushes on the sides and in the front, and few machines also have sprinklers present at the back side of the machine, with the purpose basically to suppress the dust during the sweeping operations through the water sprinklers. And these machines are capable of sweeping one side or the central side of the road at a time. So these machines are either operated with dry or wet sweeping mechanisms. So basically the dry and wet sweeping mechanism kind of machines have been divided into two types. One is of the 4.5 cum of vacuum and the other one is of 6.5 cum of vacuum. So these are the dust holding capacities of these machines. So the 6 cum is for the dry, is for those machines who are doing the dry sweeping, while 4.5 cum is for the wet sweeping MRS machines. So municipalities often track their MRS machines to the global positioning systems, and these GPS trackers help in providing the information about the routes covered by the MRS, the distance traveled, hours of operation of the auxiliary engine, the current location of these machines, etc. It can also help in tracking the speed of the machines, of the particular routes it's moving through, to inform the monitoring staff about its operation. But these GPS doesn't track if sweeping was undertaken or particular route traveled, or sprinkling was undertaken and was effective, or if brush was operated or not while moving on the road stretch. Therefore, corporations wanted to assess all these activities associated with the MRS. Thus, to oversee that, TERI came on board. So as you all know, these machines are really very costly investment for any corporations, and it becomes really challenging to understand various issues when it's applying on ground, and it is actually a gigantic task to efficiently operate such machines. And in the past there has been no study on the optimum utilization of these machines, and setting up monitoring, evaluation and verification mechanism to optimize its operations. So Central Public Health and Environmental Engineering Organization, which is CPHEEO, which is a technical wing of MAUA, it came up with the guidelines to operate these machines, which are discussed in the later slides that we will be talking about in detail. Coming back to my slide, as highlighted, that MRS machine, it consists of specialized equipments which are specially designed for removing the litter, loose gravel, waste, vehicle debris, pollutants such as dust from the road. And these machines are also equipped with the brooms present on the sides, that is on the left side, right side, and one present in the center. It also has a holding bin which collects the dust, which stores the dust basically once the sweeping is being carried out and vacuum is helping in the collection of all these dust. So it gets accumulated in the holding bin. And water sprinklers basically to suppress the dust. The vacuum nozzles are also there to basically adjust or adjust and help in efficient collection of dust. Filters are also there so that large amount of dust or pebbles or gravels doesn't get collected inside the holding bin. And suction inlet for airs and debris. So these machines are really very helpful in effective removal of all the large particles, but timely maintenance of these machines are also really very important. That needs to be looked after by the urban local bodies. And machines can vary in size, as highlighted earlier, that it is divided into two. There are two types of machine, 4.5 cum and 6 cum. Large machines have auxiliary engine to support the suction. Average speed of these machines may vary from 3 to 8 kilometer per hour for effective sweeping. So basically, it's recommended that these machines, because they are sweeping the road, so it should be kept in mind the machine moves very slowly, so it is able to actually sweep and collect all the dust effectively. And these machines are also fitted with a wander hose on the back, which is also known as a back pipe. So wherever these MRS machines are unable to go, like there are certain roads which are really very smaller and wherein MRS machines are unable to, are really inaccessible for any MRS to go. So these back pipe can be moved there. So suction of the dust happens and it is able to effectively collect the dust. So what is the correlation of mechanized road sweeping and air pollution? As you know that dust pollution is a major cause of pollution, not just in India, but worldwide as well. And in India, if I talk about, a huge percentage of population, it arises from the road dust in form of suspended particulate matter. And various sources of this air pollution or the SPM originates from brick kilns, construction activities, transport, domestic waste burning, DG sets, etc. So in the era where mechanization, automation are new norms for urban services, due to increasing development and requirements on clean air, mechanization of road sweeping is going worldwide and in India as well. So MRS machine, they are basically certified as PM10 efficient or capable of picking up greater than or equal to 80% of PM10 particle, which moves up or stirs up from vehicular traffic on the paved roads. So from that, giving you an example of Indore city in India, part of Madhya Pradesh state, it reported that they observed a drop of PM10 and PM2.5 by 8.3% to 5% in the year 2018 and 2019 due to the MRS operation only. And the city also then claimed that after using the MRS operation, the respirable suspended particulate matter also reduced in the city. Hence, I think demand for better cleanliness and limited availability of human workforce and labor around the world and India, I think coming up with MRS operations or MRS deployability on ground would be a really much feasible option for municipalities, because it is also going to help municipalities carry out the sweeping operations effectively if it is done in a manner that both the manual sweeping and the mechanized sweeping is organized or merged together. Something like that needs to come up. So TERI also conducting source apportionment studies in India, and one such study was conducted in the NCR region, which reported that road dust constitute 4% in the PM2.5 concentration, so it can easily be controlled by streamlining the MRS operation. On the other hand, PM10 concentration was about 10%. So traditional method of sweeping is being carried out manually. However, it is not feasible on the highways, large roads, because there's a constant movement of transport there, and vehicle keeps on moving. So it becomes really very challenging for the person who's sweeping the road to actually collect the dust. And most of the time what happens is, in the process of just collecting or sweeping the road, most of the dust moves up in back into the atmosphere. So it's actually not really very helpful. So MRS can really help in reducing the SPM. So machines move slowly on the road to clean the dust and suck it with the help of vacuum. Hence, I think MRS should be deployed by the municipalities on ground. So these are some non-attainment cities in India. As you can see in the map provided on the left, this map was taken from NCAP report 2019 by MOEFCC, and most of these cities are the non-attainment cities, and the PM10 levels have been bifurcated using the green, red, blue, and yellow color. So all these cities have been divided based on that. And what I think is, non-attainment cities should take action against the road dust generated through their through the various different activities, and MRS operation would be really a feasible option. So there are certain NCAM action points for pollution from the road dust and the CND waste. So introducing of mechanical sweeping on the basis of feasibility studies in city. So urban local body, whenever they are going to introduce their mechanical sweepers on ground, they should understand that they need to come up with a feasibility study wherein they understand what are the challenges that they might face while operating their MRS on ground. Suppose there are challenges like the roads are unpaved, and these machines are, because these machines are really very costly, so they might face regular breakdown when on when during their shift hours. So it's really very important that municipalities understand certain challenges, whether related to paving of roads, or providing or getting diesel on time, or designing their routes so dead mileage is reduced, so that these machines should be used and it should be used to their optimum value and perform to their fullest, without, so that it's really very helpful for undertaking the sweeping operations more. And there is a need to evolve the SOP to address the specific issue of disposal of collected dust from mechanical sweeping, also taking into consideration all the above cited factors. So municipalities, because there are certain challenges that in each of these municipalities would be facing different situations, and there would be different challenges accordingly in their area. So they should understand and evolve the SOP based on the geography they are in. Stringent implementation of CND rules 2016 and dust mitigation notification of Government of India should be there, because whenever we operate these MRS machine on ground, road dust is collected in huge amount, and CND rules says that whatever road dust gets collected, it should be utilized in the construction. It should be utilized in the cement plants or activities where it can be utilized. So I think municipalities should look after that, and dust mitigation notification should also be taken into consideration. So wall-to-wall paving of the roads needs to be maintained, so that it eases the MRS operations on ground. And stringent control of dust from the construction activities using enclosures, fogging machines, and barriers need to be there. Greening and landscaping of all the major arterial roads and national highways after identification of major polluting stretches. Maintenance and report maintenance Maintenance and repairs of roads on priority are really very important, and sewage treatment plant treated water sprinkling system along the roads and at intersecting road junction, and spraying of the water twice a day before the peak traffic hours, so that before any movement of the traffic, the dust gets suspended on ground and timely collection happens whenever the MRS passes through that particular route. So there are certain design characteristics of the MRS machines which needs to be kept in mind, because most of these MRS machines are being operated by the driver and the people who are actually looking after uh, the operators who are present along with these machines. So human factor needs to be considered, wherein these machines should be designed in wherein the it should has a proper cabin wherein both the driver and the operator is able to sit properly. There should be presence of light, so that, because the MRS fly not only during the day but also during the night shift hours, so proper uh, lights should be present inside the cabins, and also the presence of all the lights outside of the MRS should be there, because of certain reasons. And functional requirements are also really very important, that whenever MRS machine can go on breakdown, it has a certain toolkit with them, so they're able to at least work over the issues while the machine is on breakdown. So it should be provided. There are certain things, toolbox or other things needs to be provided along with the or a fire extinguisher kit needs to be provided along with the MRS machine. The machine should be easy to use, because many of the drivers who come and want to operate these machines do not actually know how to exactly operate these machines. So proper training needs to be provided to them, and it should be really very easy to understand, so that they can they are able to operate it much easily. And health and safety of the workers needs to be kept in mind. And quality of working life should also be kept in mind. So this is the process flow of sweeping of MRS machines. So this, the picture that is present below is taken from CPHEEO manual 2016, and it represents the mechanical broom sweeper. So in the MRS machine, you can see two revolving brushes and one central brush. Two revolving brushes, one is present on the right, one is present on the left, and one is present in the center. And the conveyor belt is present, that is really helpful in moving these brush and also the vacuum. And it can then move the dust, collect the dust, and transport it to the bins. So what exactly is the working of an MRS machine? MRS machine, as you know, is a truck mounted sweeper, and it is usually mounted on the truck for its primary movement. And most of this function of the sweeping unit is controlled by auxiliary engine, as highlighted earlier, that is responsible for powering the broom and vacuum functions. During the entire operation, the side and central brushes, it moves the sand debris closer towards the suction head that picks up all the debris and collect the dust in the hopper. Hopper is present at the back. It is a metallic body of the truck, and it opens up at a 90-degree with it has a hydraulic locking system in place. This is this con that con the control present inside the cabin make it really safe system and easy to operate. The challenging part of suspending the dust on the surface is taken care by the water sprinklers, and they help in suspending the dust on ground so that it gets easily collected. Also, the MRS machine has a one main broom, which has an excellent sweeping performance every time, and the two fleeting suction hoods on either of the side is presented with the choice of operating any hood independently or both simultaneously. Safety parameters are kept in mind while designing these machines, so that the vehicle possesses the hopper loading holding wall. in addition to the manual safety lock measures. It is also equipped or consists of a high pressure water jet. The water jet basically helps cleaning the signboards, monuments, paver blocks on the walking tracks, barricade, and sometimes when the dust is unloaded somewhere, basically at a disposal site only, to clean that hopper from inside, this water jet is really very helpful. So machine also possesses inbuilt water tank and inbuilt water hose system that ensures that gutter and difficult to areas are also cleaned uh, very easily. So basically, there are two types of vacuum sweepers being available in Indian market, and these are two types. One is the chassis mounted MRS, and the other one is the self propelled MRS. So the chassis mounted MRS machine, basically it is a power sweeping unit that is that with a container mounted on a vehicular chassis, having hydraulic motors, power controls for driving the brush, suction unit, and the jet washing, with an auxiliary engine drives the vehicle, having a payload capacity of power sweeping machine ranging between 4,000 to 5,000 kg, with 4 to 6 meter cube of stainless steel or higher grade container for storage of sweeping waste. While on the other hand, the self-propelled one is a self-driven power sweeping machine and is a composite vehicle that has a container, hydraulic motor, power control for driving the brushes, and suction unit and jet washing. It also has a payload capacity ranging between 2,000 to 3,000 kg in a container of 1.75 to 2.50 meter cube. This machine is a relatively small machine that can be deployed on both narrow and wide roads. So it has a plus point that it can move on both the roads, both narrow and wide roads, while chassis mounted is usually moved in the long and wide roads. So why exactly MRS machine sweeping operation is required? So as per a study conducted by Center for Science and Environment in 2016, we observed that they came up with bifurcations of different sources of air pollution, and road dust in cities accounted to about 38% of pollution which originated from road dust. So this brings us to the same point that air pollution is really impacting every aspect of our environment. It's really very important to act upon it, and manual sweeping operation is being considered one of the most feasible options to do that now, as the dust gets accumulated on central side verges of the road, and often during collection of this dust it gets moved back. So it's really really important, with the help of MRS machine, these dust is suspended back to the environment, so it doesn't move back, and it gets easily collected. So these are some CPHEO guidelines for like urban local bodies and also for the manufacturers. It's really very important to adjust the frequency of street cleaning by urban local bodies, because as you know, geographically speaking, every area or every municipality would be having a different condition from the rest of the municipalities. So it is the municipality's job to actually come up with which areas require immediate attention. Suppose residential areas would be requiring sweeping on a daily basis, but market areas or areas where there is no dust generation as such would not be requiring a lot of street sweeping. So based on the geography of any area, first the urban local bodies should come up with their own set of frequency of cleaning the streets. Then urban local bodies also need to ensure the safety of workers that are being engaged with the MRS operation, because most of the times these MRS machines are encouraged to be swept in 2 shift hours. So during the night time, it becomes really very difficult for the workers, as there are no sometimes the roads which are provided for sweeping, they are not fully accessed with electricity or power. So the workers should be provided with personal protective gears that should include belt jackets, reflective jackets, hand gloves, earplugs, boots, and proper uniforms should be provided to them. ID and health cards should be given to them as well. There should be a constant checking and regulatory mechanism being set by urban local bodies. If like the urban local bodies coming up with MRS or deploying their MRS on ground, they should create a system wherein they're checking the regulatory mechanism, if these machines are actually sweeping the road, or it's just moving on the routes that are provided and it's not actually doing the sweeping on that part. So all these things should be all the mechanism verification needs to be done. Local authorities also need to organize training and capacity building programs for the staff, basically to make them understand why MRS is actually important and why these operations have been are being undertaken. So they should really understand the essence of it. Then only they will be actually undertaking the sweeping and sprinkling in real sense. And it is essential for the mechanized work, not mechanized workers, but mechanized machines to work for only 2 shifts minimum, because it should also get some time for the maintenance of the vehicle. All the brushes to be replaced and refurbished after every 1000 kilometers of sweeping operation, because once the brush gets worn out, it will not be able to perform to its fullest, and it will not be able to sweep the road properly. So after every approximately 10 days or 15 days, it's recommended that the brush needs to change. And sweeping collected is to be unloaded in containers and safely transported to the disposal place. So this is the suggested sweeping frequency that SWM rules 2016 uh, like it came in the SWM rules 2016, and this is the frequency that urban local bodies should follow. But because, as I told you earlier, that geographically speaking, every municipality will be having different challenges, different situations. So based on that, each municipality should take that task of curating their own set of sweeping frequency uh, based on the situations they are actually facing. So this can be taken as an example, and they can develop over this, like for some, like city center shopping areas would require daily or twice sweeping, and while the market areas, minor streets, suburban shopping streets, or residential street might require sweeping on a day-to-day basis. While on the other hand, roads, streets having more households or establishments on the either side may require it once a week, and would require highways require rarely or necessary to sweep them, as motor traffic creates turbulence. And suburban main streets twice a week, and open space occasionally whenever it's required. So MRS machines are usually for cleaner and safer road. And in India, civic bodies face a lot of challenge while operating these machines on ground. So that the dust that gets collected near the central median and on the side of the road is a major threat to the two-wheeler riders who are actually moving on grounds. In order to sweep these accumulated dust, urban local bodies should engage municipal workers who manually sweep the road. However, constant movement of vehicle dissolves the mounts back to the environment again, and emissions of PM10 and PM2.5 happen during that process. Hence, MRS machines are like a wound, as it suspend the PM particulate matter on ground and thus gets collected very easily, so it can be utilized later in the cement plants. So there is a need for MRS audits, as it efficiently remove the fine road dust. It's beneficial for main busy roads. It can reach inaccessible places using Wander House. It can pick up large debris. It's effective in removing the packed dirt from the roads and contribute in preventing the air pollution. It's helpful in clearing the heavy dust loads. So as you can see on the right side, this picture, back hose pipe, the back pipe is this one, which can be helpful where the roads are really very small and it's difficult for MRS to reach there. So these long pipe can reach there and collect the dust. So what are the operational conditions that needs to be kept or considered during the sweeping? So the mechanized sweeping machines should work in 2 shifts only to basically ensure economically viability and also maintain these vehicles. So one skilled operator and one semi-skilled cooperator are required to operate the mechanized sweeper, because sometimes when the MRS machines is moving, it might have or face certain challenges that driver cannot come out of these machines and just go back and remove large chunk of maybe boulders or molders. So that's when the operator can chip in and actually help in removing these big boulders. And the machine is unable to clean all the odd and uneven places. So these manual sweepers would help in moving these back pipe to the places wherein this machine is unable to reach. And the typical fuel efficiency of these MRS would be around 1.5 to 2 kilometer per liter and lower if road condition is not conducive or heavily littered. All brushes are to be placed or replaced or refurbished after every 1000 kilometer of sweeping operation. What are the final implications of mechanized street cleaning? The total cost of mechanized street sweeping includes the purchase cost of the machine, the annual cost of operation and maintenance, the cost of disposing the debris, the wages of drivers and helper, and necessary to consider efficiency, average life, availability of spare parts, presence of authorized, the presence of authorized garages and personnel for maintenance of these machines. So these are some service providers for the MRS machines in India. This include the routes, Dulevo India, Man Machine Works, Cleanman Enviro Engineering Services, Quality Enviro Engineers Private Limited. And there are many more such service providers for MRS machines in India that urban local bodies can get in touch with. So case study from India, case study from Delhi, independent based audits by TERI. So basically the main objective of coming up with independent based audits in Delhi was to basically conduct an independent monitoring of these MRS machine in the 4 corporations of Delhi, which is SDMC, South Delhi Municipal Corporation, East Delhi Municipal Corporation, North Delhi Municipal Corporation, and New Delhi Municipal Corporation, and help these urban local body to improve their existing MRS operation activities. And we took into consideration and ensured that regulatory compliances are being met, compared the current practices to the benchmark level, generated the baseline data, reviewed the existing practices of these urban local bodies, and established indicators and targets. Audit coverage included like North DMC covered 6 zones, which included Rohini, Karol Bagh, Civil Lines, Narela, Keshavpuram zone, City, Sadar, Paharganj zone, and it consisted of 18 MRS, while in the SDMC it covered 4 zones, Central Zone, South Zone, West Zone, Najafgarh zone, and there are about 24 MRS. While in EDMC, there are 2 zones and it consisted of 10 MRS, Shahadra North Zone and Shahadra South Zone. So this was the assessment methodology that we followed to conduct the assessment. And the phase one was the pre-audit phase, wherein we collected basic information from urban local bodies. Relevant stakeholders were mapped who were involved in managing these MRS machine and people who were actually working on ground. Questionnaire was prepared, keeping in mind all these parameters and all these activities, and in-depth literature review and checklist was prepared for conducting the on-site audit. The at-site audit stage, under the at-site audit stage, we also did the extensive monitoring of MRS operation by TERI auditing team working on the ground, and route maps were reviewed basically to understand which are the routes that generate the most amount of waste and which are the routes that require little attention because it doesn't generate a lot of dust there. And complete organizational operating mechanism was also introduced, as in brush broom status, throughput of MRS sweeping machine per hour, status and stake of sanitary supervisor, understanding the MRS operation, the status of the machine and maintenance, collection disposal mechanism, route selection mechanism, gaps in sweeping operation, and status of machine operators. And at site for data collection, photographs are also being undertaken using the GPS map camera. And these photographs were uploaded on the WhatsApp group on a R2R basis, basically to see what exactly is the status of the MRS machine. Under the post-audit stage, we did like MRS, existing MRS sweeping operation was mapped using the CPHEO guidelines, solid waste management rules and manufacturers guideline. And we used to prepare weekly audits report that used to go out to these urban local bodies. And later on, when the project was in its final stage, we sent the compiled set of weekly audit reports, and data was analyzed, and statistics was also used regarding this, and various issues and concerns regarding this was highlighted, and recommendation was also given as part of the mitigation strategies that urban local bodies can follow and improve upon their MRS operations. What were the major areas of concern that we encountered during the study? So there should be a need for appropriate route planning, because sweeping routes should be planned in a manner that have particular correct kilometers of routes mentioned in it and sites matching the targets. Then it will avoid the vehicle standing idle after the sweeping. And it should also be carefully observed that the same routes are not being allocated to two vehicles at the same time. And municipalities should also ensure that unauthorized parking of vehicle should not hinder the side sweeping, and only roads with the side pavements should be selected, or side sweeping while making the route plan. Routes should be planned in a such manner that a starting point of sweeping should not be very far from the depot, and sweeping operation should always end near the dumping yard to save up the travel time and the distance. Circular routes should also be provided or built by the municipality itself. And broken roads and heavy dust roads must be identified in advance, and there is need for like proper maintenance to be carried out to make these roads usable for the MRS operation. And ineffective sweeping operation depleting the sweeping quantity and the quality. Like municipalities should ensure that all the drivers, include the substitute staff, are trained properly before sweeping operation, and operating staff should also be trained on the benefits of sprinkling and effects on the environmental air quality. MRS filters should also be thoroughly cleaned, as mentioned, after every fourth week, as this will help in effective sweeping operations on ground. It should also be noted that there should be no repeated routes for the MRS machine. Sweeping frequency should be set on requirement based on the observations and data from the sanitation staff. And like at present, the sweeping is being carried out at 1300 to 1500 of RPM, and there is a means that a balance on the speed of this vehicle, RPM of auxiliary engine, and speed of the side and central press should be maintained accordingly for their optimum performance. There is the need to undertake proper purging by the vehicle that should be kept between 1000 to 12,000 RPM, and manual filter cleaning should not happen, or the operators should not use bamboo sticks to clean their filters, and proper POC certificate needs to be taken by these vehicle, and use of front back sprinklers should be made mandatory. Maintenance issues are also like that the maintenance of vehicle should be done in a non-working hours. Also, maintenance team must be properly trained to do so, and proper lighting must be installed for the parking and for the maintenance purpose, as it create many problems to maintenance and to park if properly in night at the current depot or at a different place. Preventive measures need to be taken by the municipality. For carrying out the performance measure, there should be a mechanism to weigh the dust collected per shift in these municipality. This will help in tracing the effectiveness of these machines. And the municipalities must also record the distance and time swept by an operator on the sweeping operation, and establish a system to basically reward them as the best performance, as well as to penalize the non-performers below the certain benchmarks. And I think there is a need to come up with a system to penalize workers who are not wearing the personal protective equipments being provided to them by the municipality. Training and capacity building exercises should also be organized by the municipality for the workers and also the drivers, to make them understand why MRS deployability is being done and what is the purpose of doing this. What is the purpose of sweeping through the MRS machine? So they should be made aware about it. Diesel quantity, petro cards should be made available to all the drivers so that they're able to get the diesel on time before the shift or after the shift, and do not have to stay or queue up in a long line. So their shift hours are not affected, and they're able to carry out their sweeping operations. Traffic jams, to avoid the traffic jam, municipalities should design their shift hour time in the early hours of the day or during the night time. Personal protective equipment should be provided to all these operators who are being deployed on the MRS machine, and also through the drivers. There are certain remedial measures regarding these MRS. So the concerned department be directed to repair the roads so proper infrastructure is made available to the MRS for carrying out these effective sweeping. And there's a need to come up with appropriate mechanism for monitoring the target of sweeping and quality of sweeping. Water and diesel to be timely provided to these MRS machine, or before or after the shift, and water refilling of the tank should be done if required, and the water can be used from reused water. GPS based tracking system with sensors be there to monitor the brush operation, RPM of machine, and speed of machine, ensuring all the drivers including substitute staff be trained properly, and operating staff should be trained on benefits of carrying out the sprinkling and its effect on the environment. So this is one picture from the Times of India, and these are the urban local bodies sweeping efforts. So the North Corporation is represented by red color, East is represented by green, and South by blue. So as you can see, the corporations deployed the MRS on ground, among other measures, to check the dust pollution, and road length covered and manual sweepers have been highlighted here in the picture. Moving forward, we have good practices from all these municipalities. So in this picture, you can see that effective sweeping observations is there. Like on the left side you can see the road is dirty, while on the left side you can see the road is dirty, while on the right side you can see that it is much more cleaner. Good practices where workers are wearing PPEs in Delhi. So here the workers are seen wearing the PPEs. Good practice of sprinkling being undertaken by the MRS. So sprinklers are being used whether on the back side of the MRS vehicle or on the sides. It is really helping in curbing down in actually suspending the dust particles on ground so that it gets easily collected. Good practice of SDMC by coming up of mechanical sweeping dashboard. Here you can see that on the left side, 24 vehicles are in operation, 23 vehicles are under the GPS control, and they're active. The GPS is active on the 23 vehicles. Moving forward, you can see that SDMC is able to see and track where all these MRS machines are actually moving. And if they are not moving, then particular supervisor can call the particular people or the driver on ground and check with him what exactly is the issue with the particular MRS. So what are the suggestions for the urban local body? Basically, MRS machines, as you know, is a very costly, require day-to-day maintenance. Hence, ULB should deploy organizations or companies like TERI to undertake independent audits on a regular basis to prevent bad practice and reduce the dead mileage during the operation. And independent audits will ensure that all maintenance operations and issues get resolved at the earliest without any delay, and which clearly enhances the overall performance of the vehicle when plying on ground. And MRS sweeping should be slow so dust gets collected, and sprinklers should be used at all times for the dust suspension, and sprinkling nozzle needs to be adjusted accordingly. And petrol carts should be made available to ease the refilling of refilling of diesel. So as you can see, these are some of the references that I provided. You can go and revisit all these references, and if you have any further questions related to the independent audits that TERI is doing, you can reach out to me on my email address that is provided here, and I'm also providing below my LinkedIn handle. So anybody who would like to get in touch with me regarding discussion on these MRS machine, or you have any question related to that, feel free to reach out. I would really be helpful and will help you understand it more better. Thank you so much for bearing with me during this entire presentation. It was really, I'm really very grateful to be giving this presentation today to all of you. Thank you for listening to me. Looking forward to receiving all your questions. Thank you so much.